Welcome back. Infrastructure, Port Services and Transport Minister Philip J. Pierre has said it was necessary for government to repeal the Airport Development Act introduced by the former UWP regime as it planned a $400 million rehabilitation of the HIA International Airport. The legislation, Mr. Pierre told Parliament Tuesday, did not lay out a structure for the construction of the new airport, rather spoke strictly to the collection of an airport development charge. The minister said if plans for the improvement of the HIA Airport were to proceed, government had to take certain corrective measures. The new act speaks to the establishment of a bid evaluation committee comprising 7 individuals with background in finance, law and procurement. The members will be drawn from the Ministry of Finance, the Attorney General Chambers, the private sector and an internationally recognized accounting firm. Minister Pierre stressed that government is entering into a public-private partnership that would see a private concessionaire leasing the airport for 30 years.
The government of St. Lucia will not have any debt in that transaction. And Mr. Speaker, what I want to note also in Section 12 is the concession contract shall pay to the authority a share of the annual gross revenues generated by the airport as agreed by the parties. So the revenue that is collected from the airport, from the fees, the government will get part of that revenue, and that will be agreed to in the agreement, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, still on Section 12, and for clarity, Mr. Speaker, for transparency, Section 12(3)(a) reads, the concession contract must include the names, addresses, telephone, and fax numbers of the contact persons of the parties to the concession contract. Mr. Speaker, there shall be no hidden partners. There shall be no partners that are hidden. There shall be no partners in the dark. The contract, and that is part of the law.
The new act also makes provision for the protection of workers at the airport. Minister Pierre emphasized that government would not be losing revenue as a result of entering into the PPP arrangement.
The navigation and communication charge, as said in Section 16(1) of the Act, that revenue will go to the government of St. Lucia Full-Slasper. The security charge, Mr. Speaker, will go to the government of St. Lucia. The security charge and the communication and navigation charges shall go to the government of St. Lucia. All other fees and charges may be created in accordance with the concession contract. Now, the reason why, Mr. Speaker, the security charges and the navigation charges must remain in the government, because the government, through SLASPA, will still be in charge of security of the airport, will still be in charge of customs, and will still be in charge of the air traffic control at the airports. What the concessionaire is doing, the concessionaire through a PPP will manage, fund, and capitalize the airports. But the security features, etc., the security, the air traffic control, and the customs will remain under the remit of the government. All employees of the authority and its affiliates working at or in relation to the airports, except for those specifically retained by the authority. That means the customs, the air traffic control, which will remain under the remit of the government. All these people shall be transferred to the concessionaire in accordance with the Labour Act number 47 of 2006.
Meantime, former Communications Minister Guy Joseph told the House while he supports improvements to HIA International Airport, he is unable to come to terms with some of the conditions in the agreement.
If you buy in a home, even though the home can secure itself in terms of its value, you are required to bring. The bank would ask you, how much are you depositing? So was it so unconscionable that the persons using the airport facility would pay a tax that would go towards a deposit for that development. Mr. Speaker, the same Bahamas that was cited by the member for Castries East, they were collecting this tax well in advance of developing the airport. I went to the Bahamas, Mr. Speaker. I looked at the model along with the member for Castries North. We looked at the models. We didn't do things in a crazy manner, Mr. Speaker. We looked at the mechanism that was set up there, run by a Canadian company. And anybody who saw, and anybody who spoke to the people there would know that these companies are there to maximize profit. Maximize profit. If you ask me if to put back the tax, I would put back the tax. I would support the Prime Minister when he reintroduces the tax. But the airport must be maintained, owned, operated by St. Lucia.
Mr. Joseph questioned the decision to lease the airport, noting that SLASPA would be losing revenue, in addition to the George F.L. Charles Airport being further marginalized.
The airport plays a critical role in the economy of this country. It is the international gateway to St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. The mainstay of our economy is tourism. You think I trust that in the hands of a foreign entity? We saw what happened at the last financial crisis, Mr. Speaker. We saw how many major companies collapsed. We saw entire countries and their economies collapsing. So you think because you bring in an entity there, we saw what happened with Enron. Mr. Speaker, there are plenty of examples. We saw what happened with Clico right in this region. What happened to the La Paradis project? What happened to the Ritz-Carlton project? What happened? Not the investors that went under, the banks went under, Mr. Speaker. So you want me to put my faith in some foreign company for 30 years to manage the mainstay, the main gateway to the economy of this country? And you telling me that St. Lucians who have managed this airport from the time it was established to now cannot do it? How we cannot do it? Why you want to bring in a foreign entity to do so? What expertise are they bringing to the table that we do not have? You have an entity called SLASPA. It manages your airports, it manages your seaports, it manages the various ports of entry at the marinas and all of this. When you remove the main revenue earner for SLASPA, you think SLASPA can remain as it is? I know the minister said that people's jobs are going to be preserved. In the interim, jobs will be preserved, but we're talking about 30 years.
The bidding process for St. Lucia's Airport Redevelopment Project is slated to begin this month, according to the International Finance Corporation. Among the project's features will be a realignment and extension of the airport's runway to turning bay, the construction of a new technical tower, and an additional parking apron.